Welcome to Toffee TV. It is the match preview, Everton versus Bournemouth, the final game of a, let's be honest, horrible season, a berserkly long season, and yeah, the final game, it's here, project restarts, final game, Everton-Bournemouth, and a game that means a lot more to Bournemouth than it does to Everton, on paper anyway.
Most definitely, yeah. To be fair, Bournemouth are in trouble if they go down, aren't they, really? They've invested a lot of money since they've been in the Premier League, and I think, I'm not too sure this is right on it, but I think they are facing issues if they go back down because they won't be able to meet the FFP of the Championship next season, so it's do or die, isn't it, really? Same with Villa.
Well, it's out of their hands, isn't it? The other two teams get the result they need, well, get a point. Bournemouth couldn't catch them anyway. There is one goal between Aston Villa, Watford and Bournemouth, so if the other two were to lose and Bournemouth were to beat Everton, then goal difference would come to their aid and they'd stay up. So there's certainly an incentive there for them, for Eddie Howe to come to Goodison and have a go. But I've watched them quite a bit, well, because we've watched most of the football since lockdown. Some games they've looked quite bright and other games they've looked atrocious, and that's been the problem for them this season. And to me, and I've said this before about Eddie Howe, for all the plaudits he gets, there's a huge flaw in the fact that he's never learned how to defend since they come up.
It's interesting, Bournemouth, because there used to be a side when they first came, the first two seasons they came up, and they used to score goals, but they used to concede a lot. But they used to have these runs in the middle of the season where they win 3 or 4 on the bounce, get a couple of draws, then they'd lose 5 or 6, and that was their season, really. And about 2 years ago, they started changing the style of play. I think it become a bit more compact. They bought, obviously, Billing this season, Lerma last season, trying to get more bodies in the middle, more physical.
Yeah.
And it's not really worked. They tried to become a counter-attacking team, and they got slipped further and further down the league, and obviously now this season in a massive relegation fight. Yeah, I equate Eddie Howe's tactics similar to Marco Silva's in the sense that they're just too open. There's too many gaps. Yeah. And they don't protect, well, they try to protect them by signing those two players, but they don't protect the centre-backs enough. And they just get exposed. I think they haven't really got any... I was speaking to someone from Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the fact that they haven't got those partnerships anymore. When they came up, they had Pugh and Richie on the wings, they had Cook and Francis, and they had all Daniels on the left. They had all these players who played together for years right through the leagues. And as they've slowly added to the squad, maybe the same mentality and culture isn't there. They don't really have those partnerships anymore. They've got a couple of good players. Don't get me wrong, King and Wilson have done well in the Premier League seasons, but the rest of the team just doesn't seem to fit. Now, obviously, David Brooks has been out for a long time. Wilson's been all right. I'm not a big fan of Harry Wilson, but yeah, they're not really a team for me. It's very disjointed, and I think they've probably learned a hard lesson in the fact that they've spent a lot of money, but really they haven't really got much to show for it, as other teams have learned.
Yeah, we know that very well,
exactly,
don't we?
Yeah.
64 goals conceded again this season. It's I think it's 70. This will be the first time, actually, I think, that they've conceded under 70, unless Everton scores 6 at the weekend, which I can't see. It'll be the first time they've conceded under 70. But what's happened this year is obviously just going against last season. Like Ryan Fraser had a really good season last year. I think it was 8 goals and 14 assists.
Yeah,
or something like
season,
that.
yeah.
This year, I think it's 1 goal against.
Yeah.
Who did he score against?
Fraser, Everton.
Yeah, Everton. The 1 goal against Everton. And I think he's only had 4 assists this season, so that's a big drop-off. He's, of course, said that he wasn't going to play for them after the 30th of June, and he's left the club. And he just haven't been quite as good this season. And I think they got Billing, and I actually think he's all right.
He's all right, yeah.
You know, he's a decent defensive midfielder. But you're right about them losing. I always thought Harry Arter was good for them. And I thought,
things together,
get in, and he'd dig in, and he was the kind, he had a bit of needle about him, but he was also the kind who would pull people into position. Sermon was doing that a lot when he first came up.
Gosling even as well, he's still around, but yeah.
Gosling he's obviously depreciating every year, isn't he, because he's getting older, but you can see he does try to keep them going.
They had that core of players in the squad where they had that work rate, they had that togetherness, they've been through the leagues together, they understood what the roles were. And I think they've added players, and I don't watch Bournemouth every single week, but when I've seen them, they just don't seem to fit together. And I know they bought a lot of players off Liverpool, and not really worked. Brad Smith was a bad signing, let's be honest, and Solanke. I understood it. Not for 20 million. If they'd spent 6 or 7, I get it, because he had talent when he was young. But 20 million, you're expecting a player, if at Bournemouth, that's like Everton spending 60 million on a project. You can't do that. You have to spend the right amount. Bournemouth 20 million, they needed a ready-made player to step in, and he's just not worked. I know he scored 2 goals the other week, but it's just not good enough, really. And yeah, it's just not really. They've tried different players. It's just not worked. And I think, don't get me wrong, I think Eddie Howe's done an amazing job since he's been there. But from where he took them from to where they are. I know he came back after the spell up north with Burnley, and he's took them on to even better things. But it's either they have to change their everything next season and restart, or he has to leave if he wants to sort of save his reputation. But I've always said I don't think Eddie Howe should ever leave Bournemouth, because I don't think his methods will work everywhere else. I think that culture that they don't sadly have anymore, I think that he couldn't get players to. If you listen to Eddie Howe interviews, he works very hard with the players. He spends long hours. And I can't see him if he went to an Arsenal or an Everton when he was linked with that. I think the players would have been a bit too big for him. I don't think he would have bought into him as much. So I don't know. It's a difficult position for him. It's probably similar to Alan Kirbishley. Maybe his time's passed in terms of moving on.
Charlton. He's ingrained in that club, isn't he? He's built everything up. He's improved the training ground and everything like that. But they are a club that they only get, I think there's 11,500 get into the state when the crowd are there. But I think they're one of the clubs who have struggled with no fans. I think they needed, a bit like Norwich coming back from the lockdown, I think they needed their crowd into that. It's a tight little ground. It's difficult to play. Yeah. For instance, they play Crystal Palace early on, and it might have been the first game back after lockdown. Palace won 2-0. Palace have only won a couple of games. I'm not sure Palace win that with the crowd, and it has been a bit difficult for those. Norwich, like you said, Norwich are very similar as well. I think they needed their crowd if they were to have any hope of staying up, and even Watford, we've seen that. Watford just before lockdown had beat Liverpool 3-0 and had Nigel Pearson had a bit of momentum, and apart from beating Newcastle at home, that momentum's gone with them. So it is a tricky one for Everton. Obviously, for our perspective, it's important, I think, to win the game, to finish on a high, because so far in the 8 games in lockdown, we've only lost 2 of them, haven't we? Yeah. We've had 3 wins and 3 draws and 2 defeats since coming back. And I just think if we finish with a victory on Sunday, I think because it is only a very short turnaround, I think the players are off for just 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks, and it's back to pre-season. It's the fan base you want to keep the feel good. Now, I know people aren't going to be dancing in the streets on Sunday night if we win, and we're not going to be all in for we're going to be amazing next season, but it just makes you look at it and go, well, you know what, we come back from lockdown, we were okay, we'll get a few new signings in, Carlo Ancelotti's in there now, and it gives you that confidence going into next season, doesn't it? Yeah,
you just spoke there about the momentum being lost. Losing 3 months, losing momentum during 3 months is it's going to happen. But as you say, if you go into on the back of 2 wins, 2 weeks, you're not going to lose that momentum in 2 weeks. Players aren't going to forget what worked and what didn't. You'd be able to go into the pre-season on a high. And don't be wrong, last season, we saw last season, we ended really well, didn't we, the season, and then we had the break, and then we came back and we didn't pick it up, did we? And obviously that led to Marco Silva's second. But I think this one's a bit different because it is such a short turnaround, and it'd be nice if in those 2 weeks we could pick up maybe a sign or 2, and then so you start building the momentum then, and by the time pre-season's over, which I'm guessing will be a lot of locally based games, then hopefully we'll be ready to rock and roll for next season. And obviously, certain teams will come into the season fire and certain teams won't. I think this is going to be another very disjointed season. I think obviously it benefits teams with large squads who've got full of good players, like your Man Cities. But I think next season can be certainly interesting. If Everton can pick some momentum up before Christmas, they'll put themselves in a good position for the second half of the season. So winning this game is important. Although I do think you'll probably see some of the I think Gordon will definitely play. I think Branthwaite, and we may see Moise Keane if he's available as well.
I was going to say, and obviously at Sheffield United on Monday we played the 4-2-3-1, which the squad knows very well.
Yeah.
And it worked. Let's be honest, we were playing a very different opposition in terms of Sheffield United. We play with 3 centre-backs, overlapping centre-backs, and we knew we'd have to get in and make it difficult in midfield, which we've been losing the battle in there. Certainly, from the moment we lost the Spurs game, everyone's levels dropped, and we've looked terrible really in other games, very disjointed, very undercooked. When we seemed to come back from lockdown in quite in decent nick really, without playing well. But Monday was while it wasn't a great performance, it was a gritty, hard-working performance, and that carried a real threat on the break. But I mean, Bournemouth play 4-4-2.
Match them up, innit?
I think we'll go back to a 4-4-2 at the weekend.
I think that's what we'll play, and that's what we're recruiting for, as we discussed in the final word. I think Carlo thought, we'll match them up. We'll get, we'll take the sacrifice of this game. We'll play that formation. But obviously, he wants to make the 4-4-2 work. That's his system. The more you play it, the more the players get used to it. The more the teething problems get further and further weeded out. So, we're going to be playing 4-4-2 all the way through pre-season, I'd assume. Don't be wrong, I still do believe in certain games. We'll see the 4-2-3-1. We may see 3-5-2 in different games, depending on his tactical manager. He's going to change things up. But I think the basis of the squad is going to be 4-4-2. So, I expect to see it on Sunday. I think he'll match them up. I don't think he's going to try and overload the midfield. I think if he gets a chance to play 4-4-2, he will.
In terms of the team then for Sunday, obviously you just mentioned there Anthony Gordon, could come in to the Everton side. What do you think? He was asked about Moise Keane after Monday night. Obviously Moise Keane wasn't in the squad the other day. They turned his ankle in training and missed. So if he's fit, would you expect to see him starting the final game? Or...
I would hope so, yeah. I think I'd play Richarlison on the right, Gordon on the left, and then I'd have Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Moise Keane in front. I think, I said as we talked about, I think it was on the live the other day about Moise Keane, when someone asked a question. I think it's very hard for him to seem to be able to get into a rhythm when he doesn't start. He just seems to come on and runs himself out quite quickly because he just chases everything. It's like he's like an excited kid at times. And I don't think he really settles into a game. If you look at the Newcastle game when he starts, it was a bit ropey at times, but he settled into the game and obviously got his goal as the Glasgow Street sucked it in. But, I think, the more we see him start, the better he'll be for it. Now, don't be wrong, we've got to win games next season. He's not going to start every week. It's just, unless he proves it in pre-season. He's got, this summer's a big summer for him. He has to start going up a level. There's got to start to be a bit more consistency. Carlo and Duncan will obviously give him chances and they'll work with him, but it's up to him now. There's always, obviously there's a level of development the coaches need to give you, but there's also a level of buy-in from the player, and I think he needs that. So yeah, I'd start him Sunday. I think, I know it's I don't really want to finish lower than 11 because we haven't finished lower than 11 for a long time, have we? But give him a chance. Play Richarlison on the right. I'd like to see Richarlison on the right from the start in a 4-4-2 anyway, because I'd like to see what that looks like in case we need to do that next season. You don't know what's going to happen with the wing position in the close season.
Unless he goes with Richarlison off the left again and Theo Walcott's on the right, and Walcott done okay.
I'm just trying to wedge people in, but
Anthony Gordon, I think it's absolutely right for Anthony Gordon to be getting games because he's the future, isn't he? I
think he's earned it as well. I know there's been games where he's had started well and sailed out of games, but kids are going to do that. I think the more he gets exposed, as I was talking to someone in football and they were saying we watched the first game he played. It was the Derby start, and it was just a bit too quick for him. By the next couple of games, though, everything slowed down. Leeds slowed down. And I think when he comes on, it's still a bit quick. He takes him a moment to settle, but when he starts, he seems to sort of drift into the game quite easily. So, yeah, the more he plays, I think you've got to have an eye on the future sometimes, especially in games that if Europe was on the line, and no, I wouldn't play any. I'd play your best side, but I think someday I'd like to see Gordon. I'd like to see Branthwaite play. Apart from that, I don't think I wouldn't play Ellis Sims or Benny. I don't think they I think Ellis Sims probably needs a loan next. So I'd just they be the younger lads I'd like to see in the team.
It'd be nice to. Again, depends on how the game goes and how the manager's feeling, but it'd be nice if Ellis Sims is on the bench
it'd be nice
to try and get him 15 minutes.
I think he was only on the bench because of
Of course,
absence, but yeah, it'd be nice for him, yeah.
I think it'd be nice to see.
Don't need two goalies.
To get him on. No, we don't. To get him on the pitch. What would you do at right back? Because obviously, Jibril Sidibé started at Sheffield United the other night and was quite disciplined, I would say.
I'd play Coleman.
And he was open. Would you play Seamus?
Yeah, I'd bring Seamus Coleman back. I think Sidibé did well, but I think Coleman does the job that he did the other night better. Obviously, when if you can combine the two, that'd be great, because obviously Sidibé's great and the other teams are. He's okay in his own defensive third. Coleman's now a good defender, which he wasn't always when he was younger, but he is now. And get in the final third.
Not so good anymore.
He's like Theo Walcott. He gets in great positions and just can't finish the cross, the chance, whatever. But yeah, so yeah, I'd play Coleman. I think. I don't know. I'm the way I always think of things is people who are going to be here next season should always get the chances. So I'd say that he's going to be here next season, Coleman, because I think he's going to be one of the experienced people in the dressing room, so he should play.
And then for you in the middle, Gomez and Davies.
I continue with it. I thought Davies, I know people don't love Tom Davies, but I thought he did fine the other night. I think he got ratted around, he helped Gomez, you know. Realistically, I know there's 3 in midfield because when Gylfi dropped in, but there's still only 2 of them when they play, you know, in possession. Them 2. I don't see any other options. I don't think Delph's going to be fit. They've ruled him out for the rest of the season.
For the season.
Yeah, I don't want to play Gylfi in there. I know Gylfi had an alright game the other night, but I've seen enough from it centre midfield, and I hope he's not here next season. So yeah, Tom. Yeah. And that's not to say Tom will definitely be here next season, but I think he still has a foot in the door of an Everton future still.
Yeah, I mean,
he's half in, half out.
Maybe alone. I think Davies. It's a big summer for Davies, but I'd said it before. I think the best action for Everton and for him is for him to go out. But I think whether that's loan or whether we sell him, I just think at the minute he's not improving. He done okay the other night, he did, but then there was still those moments that show me even at 105 Premier League games or whatever it is, he's still making stupid mistakes. It's decision making. I said to you the other day, he'll win the ball and he'll go past one player and just knock it off and you've done your job. And he doesn't. He'll hesitate, he'll turn back, he'll run in a blind alley. And until he gets those decisions right and just turns away and plays the first pass he sees, I think he's going to stand still. And I think there's a decision got to be made where how can he get to a level. Tom Davies might end up an Everton squad player, and that's fine, got to have them. Whereas they come in for a couple of games and go back out. And they do a job and that's it. But I still think at the moment he's got to produce a level of consistency that he isn't. And if that's and alone, I think, would be best for him.
This is the season, so he's a year younger than Mason and younger than Mason and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And this is the well, it helped that Mason Holgate went on loan. I think, I didn't particularly love his loan spell. I think he playing right back and what have you not. But it worked for him. It seemed to settle him down. He played games consistently, and I think Tom going on loan is probably the best chance he has. I don't think staying at Everton playing, as you say, 1 in every 5 or 6 games is going to do anything for him next season. And he's probably, let's be honest, at this stage, unless he does end up like Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Holgate, he's never going to be Everton's number 1 choice centre midfielder. But having someone like that as your 4th midfielder, that's not a bad career for someone. People have done it before. He played, and at the end of the day, he loves Everton. He loves the club. I think having people like that who still love the club when people come in is a good thing for the dressing room. I don't think that's a problem. I think the fans obviously expected a lot from when he started, and it's not really worked out. But let's see what happens. You don't know. You can never know. You can't write him off just yet.
No. Bournemouth are looking to achieve a Premier League double for the first time ever, following
that's a given.
3-1 win down. Well, we've not beat them down there. I think.
We haven't.
So
we should have. But
there's been 35 goals in 9 Premier League meetings between Everton and Bournemouth.
It's usually quite lively, isn't it?
Averaging 3.9 a game. Mad. If Bournemouth fail to win, they'll be relegated to the Championship, ending their 5-year stay in the Premier League, and they would have become the first team to have ended the day in the top 3 of the Premier League after at least 5 games of the season and be relegated, because they did start the season well, didn't they? It's their 8th season on the run, playing the final game away from home. These are fascinating stats, aren't they? Fascinating facts. I'm not going to mention that one because it'll jinx it. And I'm not going to mention that one either. Amongst the current Premier League players, no one has scored more match day 38 goals in the competition than Theo Walcott. He got 6 goals on the final day of the season. So
what you're telling me is when the season's over, he's popping up and scoring.
You know what I mean? Maybe get him in.
It's usually to secure Arsenal's champagne supernova Champions League entry, isn't it?
Everton's Richarlison is the 5th highest scoring Brazilian in Premier League history with 31 goals. 1 goal here would make it his most prolific season.
Yeah.
And after netting 5 goals in his first 7 appearances, the Callum Wilson has found the net just 3 times in the final 27 games. And that's been the real problem for Bournemouth, hasn't it? Wilson, Josh King, who is a player I really like, but I think he's gonna, I said this the other day to Pedal, he's one of those players who probably should have moved a couple of years ago when Spurs, even Everton wanted him, didn't he?
I think he had a chance in January, Josh King, and then United opted for Igalo, didn't they? Because Bournemouth wouldn't let him go. But I think even so, there's probably a couple of chances over the years where he probably could have left. Callum Wilson, another one, last season heavily linked with, I think he was linked with Everton for a bit last season, but
Chelsea
mostly Chelsea, mostly Chelsea. And Yeah, Harry Wilson, he's been all right this season. He scores a lot of spectacular goals, but what else is there? And I know goal scoring's important, but you need more than just...
He's going back to Liverpool anyway. He's not going to get in Liverpool.
No, he'll be sold. I think he did well. He did all right in the Championship. I think he's done all right in the Premiership. He'll find the club, but I'm not a big fan. But yeah, that's the problem. They haven't got, Jordan Ibe never worked out for them. Slanky never worked out for them. They've got quite a lot of players who just haven't worked out for them. And I think Brooks' injury, because he's actually a really good player, probably cost them really.
Well, I wanted to just, before we finish, I just wanted to quickly talk about David Brooks, because he is a Bournemouth player who I think's really good. On Patreon, me and Ped did a thing. Someone had asked us a question about what of the potentially relegated teams would you like to, what players would you take from there? And we both went for David Brooks at Bournemouth, just because I think his running off the ball, I think, is really good. He arrives into the penalty area.
He's a clever player, yeah.
And I don't think Everton have that. I'm not saying he's someone he'd be a first choice for Everton.
Well, you could get him for a cheap price, then, of course. I think he's an upgrade on probably, on Bernard, and I think, whatever about Iwobi. I think he's probably more consistent than Iwobi. So yeah, if you could get him. The thing about the relegated teams, you look at Bournemouth, the rest of them, people like Nathan Aké, we've already got Mason Holgate, that's too similar. You probably couldn't have a Nathan Aké. Apart from that, really, there's not really much else. Billen's all right, yeah. I think still, though, he'd be Everton's fourth midfield. He's probably not, but if he signs two good players.
What do you think of the keeper?
Ramsdale, he's good, yeah. I was going to say, when you said they conceded all them goals, that's not to be one to try and for Aaron Ramsdale, because I think he's actually had a good season. I think if
20, isn't he?
Yeah, I think if 21, yeah. I think if Henderson goes from Sheffield United, I think they signed him from Sheffield United when he was a kid. We were in for him. Everton were in for him when he was a kid, weren't they? He went to Bournemouth, and I think he'd be someone that Sheffield United looks at Henderson. Yeah. I think he's a good keeper, really good keeper. Yeah.
Done well.
They've got the backup keeper had a good. Travers had a good season last season, if you remember rightly as well. He played a couple of games, so yeah, whatever.
There you go, Everton v Bournemouth, the final game of a
prolapse rather than restart.
Mad season. But let's, hopefully Everton will finish it on a high and
fingers crossed, yeah.
Be able to go into next season with some momentum. And I guess if Everton win it and end up with, what would that be, 4 victories, 3 draws and 2 defeats, that isn't a bad return. I think what I would say is Ancelotti's done very well at getting results with the players he's got. Performances haven't been there. I don't think anyone could...
They've let him down in certain games.
Anyone could sit around and say we've played well in games, because I don't think we have, but we've got results.
I think others have mentioned this. I think you're getting to the stage now where players, though they had 3 months off, it wasn't like they could relax. It was like, they're probably doing work every day, in terms of training, videos and different stuff. I think they need probably a break now, because I think that there's a mental tiredness. You watch different games, even the Championship last night when I was watching that, people are just starting to get a bit mentally tired by the season. So yeah, I think that's sort of settled into why the games are slowly going like that, and towards the end of the season. But yeah, we'll hopefully get some momentum.
There you go. Let us know what you think in the comments. Who you fancy for this one? Will Bournemouth stay up? Can they stay up? Well, they can, but will they? Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. If you want more videos, join us on Patreon. See you later.